Welcome back to The Real Story. Who needs climate change to be the villain when a bloated utility monopoly can light up 14,000 acres of precious land, kill 19 people, and cause billions of dollars worth of damage with just one spark from crumbling power lines? What I'm describing is something you all might remember. That's the Eaton Canyon fire, ignited way back in January in LA County's Angeles National Forest. According to the Department of Justice, who just slammed Southern California Edison with a huge, landmark federal lawsuit. The feds are saying Edison's transmission lines in Eaton Canyon surged with extra juice during brutal winds, possibly even re-entering a dead power line. And bam, just like clockwork, we got a firestorm. Even worse, apparently Edison knew the gear was extremely risky. They knew that the winds were coming, and they still sat on their hands anyway and watched as Californians paid the price. This monster blaze destroyed over 9,400 homes and structures. It injured firefighters and even racked up suppression costs alone, topping $40 million for Uncle Sam. And that's not even counting the rehab bill for federal lands. Now, the CEO of Edison, Pedro Pizarro, admitted way back in January that their equipment could have been associated with the ignition. And now they're just tossing out quickie settlement checks to victims like hush money, hoping and praying to dodge bigger pain in the courtroom. But get this, this is not the first, but the second DOJ suit against Edison this year alone, hot on the heels of the 2022 Fairview fire. And lawyers are rightfully calling it unconscionable pattern of negligence. Folks, while Sacramento screams about things like climate change and global warming, the real arsonists who are actually causing fires, monopolies, who are gambling with our lives and our forests and on your. How many more infernos must they start before someone finally yanks their matches away? And California's leadership, they did nothing about it. And due to that alarming reality, many Californians to this day are still without homes, and their insurance claims haven't been met yet. Unfortunately, that is life in California under people like Gavin and LA Mayor. But it begs the question, when will those who were affected finally see the relief they deserve? And when will SoCal Edison finally be brought to justice? Here with some answers and his expertise, Ari Friedman, a partner and trial attorney with Wisner Baum LLP, the California-based law firm that is leading the charge not just for accountability, but for justice with this landmark lawsuit against Southern California Edison. Thank you for joining me, sir. I appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you for having me, Riley.
So these are some of the worst fires that California has ever seen. And unlike in January when we had a lot of questions about what started it, now we have a whole lot of visibility into what really happened. And it brings us to the lawsuit. So I want to start with how that process is currently going.
The lawsuit is going well. We've removed the evidence, the towers, the power lines. We are in the process of examining them in detail. Because although we have a very strong story that we know the fire started because of Edison's equipment and right underneath Edison's tower, the exact mechanism of how the fire started is still being explored, and we need to figure that out in order to press the lawsuit forward.
Understand. So once that information does come to light, what is the next step of the process?
Right now, there is a trial date set in this matter for January of 2027, and we are doing everything we can to ensure we keep that trial date. We're pressing forward on a lot of fronts to make sure we can get all of the equipment examined, get all experts in line in terms of figuring out exactly what went wrong with this power. This inactive tower became energized, and what parts of the tower actually sparked or caused the ignition of the fire. So we're hopeful over the next year we'll have all those questions answered and ready to go. Trial in January if Edison doesn't want to start settling these claims for real value.
Okay, so could you please walk us through What happens in the best case scenario of damages, payouts, and as you just alluded to, settlements?
That's right. These cases in California typically don't go to trial because once we have the forensic evidence that shows the fire because of Edison's equipment, they tend to want to move this process into a settlement program rather than face a jury's wrath with hearing about all the bad things that they've done and allowing in the first place. So best case scenario is, the work that we do that we're constantly pressing on at Edison to give us in terms of examining not only the physical evidence, but also all their policies and procedures, will push them to actually set up a settlement program in the litigation where we can then help guide our clients to gain the full and fair value for what Edison took from them.
So that's where I want to go next. Look, maybe you can't share this information quite yet. However, we're talking about people, millions of people who might have lost a home, a vacation home. Maybe they lost everything. And it's been almost a full year since it all happened. And with a date set for January of 27, that's a long time to wait for some kind of relief. So I'm wondering, what is the number, ideally, for a fair settlement for, say, that lost their whole home in the Eaton fire?
Everyone's home, everyone is going to be uniquely different, and it's very difficult to give a kind of generalized statement about the value of what someone lost.
Okay.
But what the fair value is going to be determined by what they had, and then figuring out what it would fairly cost to essentially replace what they lost. We also have to consider that the stress, the anxiety, the evacuation, everything that these people experienced, the terror and the fright, are also going to be compensable in the litigation. So at the end of the day, we want to make sure that not only that these homeowners and the affected people can rebuild and help reestablish their community, but that they're also fairly compensate Edison for everything that Edison has put them through.
So would that theoretically include, say, the cost of living in a motel or a hotel, or even having to relocate to a different town or other just in the meantime?
That's right. That can include any damages, anything these families have spent out of pocket in the period between losing their home and having the home rebuilt and then moving back in.
Okay.
That period of people are going to experience what they have to pay is something they can recover in the lawsuit if their insurance doesn't already cover those losses.
Understood. So I'd like to follow up then on Edison's position as of right now. It seems they've at least admitted they might have had something to do with the horrific and deadly fire. But as far as you're concerned, what exactly does that mean?
Well, it is a bit of a quandary because on the one hand, they have, like you mentioned, their CEO has essentially admitted that the fire started underneath their equipment.
Yes.
And they have set up their own settlement program where we anticipate they're trying to buy these claims off for very low value. So on the one hand, they seem to be stepping up and saying there is some accountability and they want to make things right. However, they will not deal with the attorneys who represent people to set up a mediation program, ultimately because we believe the values that we can get in the litigation are going to be much greater than what Edison offers through their compensation program.
Of course.
And they don't necessarily want to start those negotiations yet because they want to have the opportunity to buy these claims off cheap.
Understood. Okay, so final question for you, sir. As far as your communications have been with their attorneys, their legal team, how are those going? And in terms of a settlement, and just really this is about justice and accountability, those lives were destroyed. Everything they had just ruined. I remember watching the footage, seeing neighborhood after neighborhood, buildings and restaurants and boutique shops, entire parts of town just vanished. They just destroyed. So I really want to ask you what you think justice looks like and how far you think you can get toward your best case scenario with Edison's team.
It is a bit frustrating because, on the one hand, they're saying publicly they want people to sign up for the Edison-sponsored program. But in the court of law, they're taking the exact opposite position and saying they are not ready and are not willing to talk with the attorneys and set up any type of mediation or negotiation for value. Okay. So really, like you said, entire communities were just destroyed in the blink of an eye. And best case scenario is we can get these people, these homeowners, these schools, these businesses, we can get them compensated through the litigation for fair and full value so that they can rebuild the communities that were lost, and hopefully the neighborhoods and the familiarity that people had will return.
I really hope so. Ari, I wish you Godspeed, truly. And I just want to say thank you for your time today very much.
Thank you, Riley. I appreciate it.